Bradby.
In 40 minutes, a group of medical students face up to the fact that their futures depend on long nights of studying. That's all students except one. Matthew Modine stars in A Cut Above here on Carlton at 10:40.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
New appeals as leaders head for the final push. More phone calls, more chaos from the IRA. Now prisoners insist we don't want to be counted. And a BAFTA surprise tonight for the stars of the street. Good evening. The election campaign was building to its climax tonight with speeches and rallying calls by all the main party leaders. Their tones were very different. The Prime Minister said Thursday would be a day of destiny and the election a battle for Britain, with everyone losing if the Conservatives lost. Tony Blair echoed his Labour predecessor, John Smith, and said all his party asked was the chance to serve. Paddy Ashdown said only the Liberal Democrats offered a fresh start. Here's our political correspondent, Jackie Ashley.
His final rallying call. Mr Major described the election as quite literally a battle for Britain. If he lost, Britain would change, he said, forever for the worse. His dream of a fair and free Britain could still live on, he said.
If only now, at this midnight hour, we don't fall for the siren voice of change. At this election, on Thursday, the British people will decide if their grandchildren will merely read the history of the United Kingdom as we know it, or whether, as all of us so devoutly wish, they will continue to make it in a United Kingdom still united.
But as Mr Major was warning the voters of what he claimed was the risk of a Labour government, Mr Blair in Bristol was spelling out his purpose, remembering his predecessor John Smith.
John Smith, the night before he died, he said one thing and it's stuck in my memory all the time since he said it. Got up, this was the night before he died, and he said, let me tell you what we want. All we ask is the chance to serve. And that is what we ask the British people over this next 2 days. We ask them for the chance to serve.
The Labour leader warned again against complacency, saying he took nothing for granted. But Paddy Ashdown was making predictions. The Liberal Democrats would see the biggest third-party breakthrough since the war, he claimed. What he wanted was a can-do Britain.
I want a healthier, wealthier, safer, cleaner, fairer, wiser Britain. But to create that sort of Britain, we need leadership, and we must have change. And the tragedy of this election campaign is that while the Conservatives have provided no real leadership, the Labour Party has offered no prospect of real change.
Disappearing under a hail of yellow balloons and ticker tape, he urged on his supporters. We've won the argument, now we must win the votes. The Liberal Democrats weren't saying what a breakthrough would mean in terms of seats. Michael Heseltine, who'd earlier warned the electorate was sleepwalking into a nightmare, later repeated his claim that the Conservatives would win with a majority of 60. Labour, still desperate not to seem complacent, say they're not even counting on a majority of 1. Jackie Ashley, News at 10, Westminster.
Tonight's speeches came at the end of another long and hectic day of campaigning by all the party leaders. Mark Webster was with Mr Blair, Caroline Kerr with Mr Ashdown, but our first report on the penultimate day of Mr Major's campaign is by Tom Bradby.
Any campaign is arduous, sometimes brutally so, but a sitting Prime Minister also has government business to get through, so Mr Major had been up for several hours this morning when he sat down to do the BBC Today programme.
I think you only got 4 interviews with the BBC in 24 hours.
Only 4.
A lot of listeners.
Not enough.
He did another interview for the BBC, a press conference, and by lunchtime he was receiving this reception in Brighton.
Those people who see old Labour isn't here, I invite them to look out there. That's the Labour Party in the country.
On a walkabout in the town centre, many people were supportive, but not all.
I've been a Tory all my life. I really hope Labour in on Friday.
You'll be disappointed then, won't you?
Despite that, he insisted he is still enjoying this. Mr Major has been relaxed throughout this campaign, and that's due in part to the fact that he clearly has felt he's nothing to lose. His advisers say he still believes he can win, but if he doesn't, wants to go down as having fought a last great campaign. He moved on, passing through Roedean School and watching the girls play cricket. Progress for all national leaders is slow.
Bye, girls. Prime Minister,
Would you mind having
Can I just have a picture with the pilot?
No, of course.
pilot.
After tonight's rally, a party with well-known supporters and a chance, rare at the moment, to catch up with his daughter Elizabeth and his son James. Tom Bradby, News at 10 in East London.
Still clutching a breakfast mug of tea, Tony Blair leaves his North London home soon after 8 for a swift drive into central London for his first engagement. Bounding up the stairs for an hour of grilling by the electorate on election call, he faces the camera for questions on everything from pensions to can he be trusted. Down the road to Labour's London headquarters for the morning press conference and time to launch his theme of the day. But an unexpected delay at the London heliport, where another election contender gets his helicopter first. So it's nearly lunchtime before Mr. and Mrs. Blair can take off for Gloucester. Time to write and read some press reports. By the time they leave the coach in this key marginal, they're an hour late. But supporters are there to greet them.
I hope so.
Back on the battle bus and down to Bristol for the key evening speech. Pacing up and down before that, there was still a live Channel 4 news interview to do and a helter-skelter race to the airport. Almost exactly 12 hours after setting out from his house in North London, Mr. and Mrs. Blair now face the journey home on the helicopter. The pace of their campaign, they say, is going to quicken towards May the 1st. An hour's ride back to London, the day still wasn't over, with strategy meetings at Labour headquarters until late into the night. Mark Webster, News at 10 on the Blair campaign helicopter.
Paddy Ashdown's day began just after 7. His first stop was an interview for breakfast television, and from there on to the morning press conference. Next, a quick interview with a foreign journalist, then a radio reporter, all before beginning his mad dash across the country. At lunchtime, he emerged at the town hall in Cheltenham for a photo opportunity with a 101-year-old woman who had just defected from the Conservatives. Half an hour later, he was being cheered in Hereford, where he landed in the grounds of a sixth form college. He never strayed more than a couple of hundred yards from the helicopter, although during a quick walkabout, the welcome was at times almost too friendly. Then it was on to Wales for the briefest of visits. Paddy Ashdown's just touched down in Cardiff, his third stop of the day, and there's still 4 to go, and he's already 45 minutes late. No wonder he appeared confused when he tried to tell his audience about his schedule.
And we have to go from here to Ian, Bath, and then West, and then Bridgewater, no, then, tell us?
Bridgewater.
Bridgewater.
And Weston.
Weston.
And Wells.
Wells, and the lot.
By Bath, he was hopelessly behind.
Let's move on.
A trip to Weston-super-Mare was cut short, and another to Minehead was cancelled. By 8 o'clock tonight, his rally was over, and a 13-hour day of relentless campaigning finally complete, though there still remained a 2-hour journey back to his London hotel. Caroline Kerr, News at 10, Shepton Mallet.
Other election news now, and Labour's David Blunkett was in South Wales today. The Shadow Education Secretary visited a school and told staff he'd ensure that class sizes are cut to less than 30, using the money Labour would save by abolishing the assisted places scheme. In Edinburgh, the Liberal Democrats' Scottish spokesman Jim Wallace was pushing his party's line on devolution. He told passers-by the Liberal Democrats want Scotland to have its own tax-raising parliament. In Kent, Social Security Secretary Peter Lilley had a meeting with business people. He told them Conservative economic policies offered them the best prospect of continued prosperity. And our political editor, Michael Brunson, is with me in the studio again tonight. Michael, the final stretch, final speeches, have the leaders got to the heart of the message that they want to leave with the electorate?
I think they have. You know, their campaign report struck me as being a bit like the politicians getting hold of the electorate like a sort of dishcloth, and they're squeezing it to the very last minute, getting the very last vote out. But it comes down to this. Mr. Major is saying, look, things have changed for the better. They are better on the economy, on Europe, and the union of the United Kingdom. Don't wreck it. Stay with us. Keep it that way. Mr. Blair is saying, look, it's not going well, things are not as they should be, it must change, above all on health and education, and he's determined to say, right up to the end to people, it's your choice. You've either got to stick with them or you're going to get change with us. Liberal Democrats are saying, Labour's change is not enough. We have got the radical ideas. There's really a remake of the Tories. Come with us. Plaid Cymru in the SNP saying Scotland and Wales have special needs, special requirements. We'll look after them. And the referendum party saying don't trust any of the others on Europe.
What are we to make about this Heseltine speech today? Sleepwalking into a nightmare he talked about.
Sounded like a gaffe, didn't it? The spinners are saying tonight, no, it wasn't. It was meant to convince the undecideds. Now, the Tories have never claimed, and they are still not claiming tonight, that they are actually ahead. But they think that when people get into the polling booths, their fingers literally with the pencil in their hand, ready to mark the cross, that they will come to them. And this, from the Daily Mail, tomorrow's Daily Mail, is designed to help them do that. They're saying that people are drugged by the seductive mantra of it's time for change, and that will undo 1,000 years of the nation's history. For the Mail, this business of the union of the United Kingdom is the most important deciding factor, which have made them come out for the Tories and Mr. Major.
Mike, one more day. See you tomorrow. Another barrage of coded bomb warnings held up